Greetings, Ashen here. Today I'm going to be doing a review of Kodoku Meatball Machine. This film is directed by Yoshihiro Nishimura. And he is the director of the first Meatball Machine film, which is one of my favorites. I absolutely loved that film. I know that it has a lot of cynicism about it, but that's part of its charm. So in about 2017, this movie came out and I was really excited to see it, and finally it came out on Blu-ray, so I'm going to go ahead and review it for you. So let's get started. The movie opens with this strange pot having creatures put into it, little frogs and millipedes and all kinds of creepy things, and that really has nothing to do with the film. It just kind of wastes time in my opinion. So I thought that was kind of odd. And then we go to what looks like some kind of a jug floating through outer space. What could this mean? Let's find out. Then we are introduced to our main protagonist, Yuji Noda, or we'll just call him Noda. He is a 50 years young man who is a debt collector, and his life is really going nowhere. Everyone seems to just be trying to leech every cent out of him, and all he is trying to do is survive. We have a character in the background, a strange looking woman with white hair. I don't believe she's ever named, but she is lurking, and she's always walking around dragging a weird paint bucket that's leaving a stripe wherever she goes. So Noda finally gets a little upset with his life. He finds out that he has cancer and that he only has 1 to 3 months to live potentially. They won't really know for sure unless he got treated or something. But with his financial situation, good luck with that. So he gets tired of it and he starts debt collecting hardcore, letting people know that he's an actual man and can't be pushed around and can't just be Mr. Sympathy all the time. So that was a pretty interesting arc for him. I was finally happy to see him get a little of his comeuppances. That is until he goes to collect a debt from Kaoru Sanda. Yes, Sanda is what we're just going to call her, I guess. So Sanda becomes sort of his love interest. He originally runs into her at a bookstore, and she just ends up on his list. And, he's kind of down about himself, but she seems really sympathetic. And she can just tell today that something is just not right with him. So she offers to take him to a place of healing. That leads them to this really strange church and all these people. It's a house of, I guess, just leaving all your burdens there, and sort of a place of grievance and letting go of the world. And here's the head monk guy. He's a weird fella. She wants him to join the church, and he is like, great, somebody else who just wants more money from me. F that, I'm out of here. She's kind of obsessed about this church. She views it as the thing that saved her life from something we don't know about. So Noda just kind of goes off from there and is looking for some comfort. So he ends up in this strange burlesque show with all these women dancing and showing him a good time. And of course, it just leads to him getting robbed of all his money that he had just been collecting this whole time. So he's kicked out by some bouncers, completely stripped of money, an IOU note attached to him. Poor guy, right? And this kid comes up and starts kicking him. So Noda's like, what the hell, kid? I'm having like the worst day ever. You're coming here kicking me. Well, this kid is sort of a child of the church, and he hates the idea Sanda might be interested in him. So the kid's kicking him and wants Noda to give some violence to him, so she has an excuse to never see him again. But before he could do anything, even though he was just threatening, he never really did do anything, the cop sees him with his hands on this kid's shirt, and those people in the background are screaming, oh, this guy might be a murderer, get him, he might hurt this child. So that's pretty crazy. So he takes off running, and we have this martial arts brigade here that are sort of acting for the police force of this district. It's really strange to see them like this, but They all function sort of as different aspects of Jackie Chan. One of them fights with like stools, one of them fights with rope, one of them even does the drunken master boxing, so that was pretty strange. And then we got like weird Hitler mustache martial artist guy in the foreground here. I don't know what the director was going for with that choice. It looks really strange to me. So they set out and they hunt him down, and as all that's happening, the giant dome finally lands over this section of Japan, and everyone is trapped inside. And then it's revealed that those strange women that were walking around, they were mapping out the area where the dome would land. And turns out that they are actually composed of machines that latch onto your head, take over your brain, and these crazy alien things, they get into you, and they use your body as sort of a mech suit to fight each other. Well, fortunately for Noda, that doesn't work for him because he has cancer, so the alien is killed. And he escapes the prison that he was locked up in, and he sees the chaos, all these creatures, these people that were turned into these creatures fighting each other. Normally, you see the horns on his head there. Normally, those would go over the eyes. They would drill into the eyes, so that way the person wouldn't even have their eyes anymore, and they would be given into their worser side while the little alien thing controls them. So, of course, the first people he runs into are the debt collection agency he's working for, the boss of it, and his assistant. And they are, of course, going crazy, killing people. And it turns out that everyone that gets turned into these machines, their weapon becomes something that they're extremely familiar with. For her, it's like a pair of scissors. I'm not sure what the deal with his is. It's a bunch of strands that wrap around people. You could see him wrapped around this guy right here. So I'm not sure how that goes to him. I knew he used to hit people with a book, but seems kind of unrelated. Whatever the case is, they try to set it up like, oh, well, the things they're very familiar with become their weapons. So we're moving on from there. Noda seems to be able to produce a sword. He had a favorite television show that he would have on in the background with a samurai guy, so when he concentrates really hard, he finds that his spirit weapon is a sword, and he produces it and uses it to great effect to kill his ex-boss and his assistant. He goes back over to Sanda's house because he's worried about her. All this stuff's going on, and she seems to be safe, but then her stalker, which I didn't mention earlier, but she has sort of this guy that follows her around and is trying to like get with her, but she doesn't really have any interest in him, breaks in to her house, and Noda is incapable of breaking down this door. I don't know what this door is made of, or if it's just budgetary constraints, but apparently this can stop an augmented humanoid robot thing. I believe they refer to these as necroborgs. So he's a necroborg now, and he can't get in there to save her or the two kids that are at her house currently. He takes off. The guy was obsessed with his car, the stalker guy, so he became sort of a car. And I gotta tell you, this sequence right here is painful to watch. It must go on for like 15-20 minutes of them fighting on top of his robotic car-like body while he has the girl abducted, and one of the kids is already dead and the little girl is still along for the ride. I don't know what the hell they were thinking. You gotta know, when you have a budget, you need to be able to work within your budget. This looks absolutely terrible. I mean, visually, this just looks like a mess. The green screen being in the background and all this, it just doesn't work out. It's not like Tetsuo, where that was a very stylized film and it could be pulled off because it may have looked kind of cheap, but it was stylized enough to where it felt like it fit within the world it worked in. This just looks like garbage. Anyway, long story short, Noda is knocked off, and Sanda is left to take control of the situation. So she takes off her top and her bra and uses them to sort of get in this guy's face and control the direction that he's going in. And of course, her number one concern is the church, not the guy that she was interested in, nothing like that. The church, she has to go make sure everyone's okay there. Meanwhile, on the outside world, we have this one woman who looks distraught. There's no characterization for her. There's no importance to her. She just walks up to the dome and touches it. And I guess her emotions come onto the dome. And you might think, that's interesting. Where are they going to go with that? Well, they literally go nowhere with it. They have more people that become interested in the fact that their thoughts can go onto the dome. It serves no purpose to this story whatsoever, and none of it matters. It's just a diversion from the actual story. And as the story progresses, things matter less and less. And that's the unfortunate truth. But Noda teams up with the martial arts brigade, and they end up eventually getting to the church where Sonda wanted to get to. She locked herself inside, but the stalker car guy is there, so all the martial artists volunteer to fight the stalker car guy, and Noda goes ahead and sneaks inside. They eventually defeat the car guy, but it's at the cost of all of them being defeated. So Noda makes it inside the church. Turns out everything went for the worst. Sonda is now possessed by one of the Necroborg suits, and she has this sort of saintly air to her. I guess it's because she has some kind of religious complex, so therefore this was her transformation. And they fight. Noda doesn't really want to hurt her, but in order to save her, he has to kill that thing in her head. So he does that. It seems like he's not going to make it either. He has all the little dagger things penetrating his body, and they end up in an embrace. And we finally get into her head and see what's going on. And it turns out in Sonda's past, her mother used to sell her to men so that way she could have money. So she considered killing herself, just jumping off the building. Noda shows up in her memory when it looks like she's about to kill herself, and he stops her, and they hug and embrace, just like they're doing in reality in their last moments alive. But a strange transformation begins to happen when they unite like this, and they become a giant meatball thing that has guns on it that blows up the entire city area that they're working on. Now, why did they become a giant meatball thing that blows up the city? I don't know. It doesn't seem to fit with any motives. I really don't understand why any of that would happen. But it does, and then they sort of turn into a juice that fills up the bottle, and the bottle then takes back off into outer space. That's when it is revealed that this is just how they make a drink for giant alien beings, and it is just a revitalizing energy drink. Now, if you're familiar with the first film, then you know this cynicism is common. The first film ended in a way that is similar to that. I'm not going to spoil anything for you, but I think this could have all worked out, even with that message, if the film had just been better made. If they had just understood what their budget was. Like, we didn't need a 15 to 20 minute sequence of really bad robot people in front of a green screen moving around a little bit, trying to act like they're actually in motion. It didn't look good. Nothing about it was appealing. It was more annoying than anything. Just go watch the first Meatball Machine and just let sleeping dogs lie. If you want some kind of poorly shot kind of action that's along the lines of the original Meatball Machine, you might like this, but it's just not as well made. Still can be entertaining in sections, especially the first part of the film. I think the climax of interest is when the dome finally comes around the city. That part was amazing. Everything built up to that, and I was thrilled at that point to see what the rest of the film was going to be like. But then it seemed like the most exciting part became the dullest part. Everything after that. So it is what it is. Anyway, I know I prattled on a bit about this, But I hope you all enjoyed my video, and I hope you all have a great day. Yes.